Well, it's another day they're talking about Trump Jr. and him colluding with the Russians to have his dad elected to be president. And also, you, you, I can't believe they did this as like a Buy American. Just try. Good luck with that one. It's gonna be a hard one. Anyway, who cares what Trump says because he's such a hypocrite? He's the opposite, man. He's probably like, buy China. Who knows? Anyway, I, I'm really disappointed because the president is not representing the people of the United States. Like when it comes to climate, it's hot out here. You can't tell me it's not warming up. It's not heating up. That the weather patterns haven't got more destructive. And I'm just talking about the hurricanes like Sandy in New York or Katrina and numerous other big storms that we've had on the coastlines, the fires that we have break out in California in a national park. And I think the flooding that we're having now, we went from drought to flooding, the mudslide, um, and we still have an epidemic of diabetes, cancer, HIV, and high blood pressure, blood pressure disease, heart disease, rather. Um, uh, did I say HIV? So you got your STDs, HIVs. You got your hurricanes, you got your floods, you got your fires, you got your filthy water, contaminated water, which us pulling out of the climate agreement, and Trump, wanting to allow more fracking, and the coal companies to dump, their coal slush and whatever their toxic stuff in there. Um, it'll exacerbate the problem. Um, and then you add on lack of exercise that humans are doing now, the food that we're eating, the education system is not up to par. Um, Sort of reminds me vaguely of a story, but it was again when it was like run by women, and wasn't really like it is now, like, oh, an all man world, full with war and stuff like that. It was really a joint coupling of the man and the wife, but the wife had more say over the children, and you had a and making sure they had a, um, more so, um, uh, fed, and make sure they got food and water. Uh, and but as the story goes, is they used to split out when they got too oops slowly I watched that fall, when they got too overpopulated, because like people tend to cluster together, uh, and you might say that their idea of how to run uh, their tribe was sort of like like the um, marked after different um, insects and animals on how they interact, because they uh, they understood science in such a way that they had a pretty good idea of physics. So they would branch out every so often to, where because you have even in the ruling family, say, so to speak, um, everybody wants. Not everybody could be a leader, but everybody wants to. It gets too crowded, it gets too volatilized, and and to cut down on disease and stuff like that, because of human race waste and animal waste, and you know, they would split out, they would split off, you know, they would split off like sometimes to four different groups. One goes north, one goes south, one goes east, one goes west, and usually they would just go try to find a place within like a month march or to the next full moon march, um, and scout out, as they go. So sometimes farther, sometimes less. Just depends. But a distance enough to where they could still interact in some ways, but they would uh, spread out, and populate like that. And it was a way of keeping um, the birth rate down, and what. So anyway, they go like later on, let's say to where you have the pharaoh. Is no longer listening uh, to the advice of the people around him, his wife, and elders, and whatnot. He's taking an ego thing. They don't split off. Um, it's because splitting off is a lot of responsibilities with the packing up, taking seeds, uh, seedlings, plants, and having people scout ahead and preparing the area. And another thing is they lost, it seemed, the comprehension on how the original women had. They would have the women, like 12 women, elderly women, and they would have their 12 male that they would interact on judgment on what to best do, for the community. Anyway, so he would say he would be like the mother and father, but the man stayed more in the background, um, um, just out of the, the way the way they were. I guess today we call it the male ego, but then at that time they said they were more sensitive, so it took to go off for them to um, verbalize. But anyway, so one of the main things that the females would do, which was what one of the reasons why they wanted to have when the white invaders came, or the Greek and the Romans came, um, Europeans came invading in that area, was how did they control the people? How did she do that? When But they because she didn't beat them, they didn't torture them, they didn't have jails, they didn't have rapists and the modern day crime that we have today. Of course, they didn't have the same type of parenting that we have today, because your survival in your old age depend on you educating your child to be a good survivor yourself. So, you know, there's a lot of nurturing um, and uh, bonding, uh, and rarely did they, like most they stayed with their parents quite a long time past, at 16. They didn't really, the women weren't getting married at 13, or they weren't getting pregnant, even though, as the story goes, that when the boys and the girls was 13, part of their learning thing is that the boys and the girls would get separated. The women, the girls, like when they get 13, will learn all about how to help deliver a baby, the complications, and the boys will learn how to what do you call it? Um, move the outer skin of the penis. I can't think of it. Circumcise the guys doing was important. Circumcised. It wasn't like, oh, like we're gonna teach them how to have sex, because it was something that they had observed anyway, and very vocal people that had explained in graphic details any questions, probably before the age of 13, when the questions arise, the child asked, and give me graphic details. Yeah, not showing, but verbally explaining it to them. And so it was very important for the survival. And anyway, that's neither here and there. That's it. We're 180 from there. They had like shit that because of can you imagine having um your royal group being so understanding of math and science that they understand, engines, steam engines, and stuff like that. Sort of saying so that when they had escaped over into this part, some of them, and you can follow the pyramids is supposed to explain that they're traveling from Africa to South America, and to escape the war and that type of thinking, um, is only the the, the the ones that were best educated were the ones that were leading. They were the harder workers. They the ones that understood how to transfer uh, the plants that other people picked. But anyway, the secret was how they was able, the females that was able, is because of food, because they paid them in food, shelter, and clothing, which was which any good mother would do for their child. Um, any good father would also make sure that child, so they saw themselves as having to be the parent to the rest of the people because they looked up to them, and yeah, they was able to um you work so much, you get fed so much, every year, you get you know cotton already weave, because like there was a big gap in what people had time to do because of their education, and plus also the ruling family also had a way of sort of working sort of like you would do on an assembly line, and so they worked very well. They were very, but today we don't have that. I got all off the story because when you hear verbal stories, and sometimes you got to start from the beginning, which I'm not. But anyway, that's either here or there. But what I'm trying to say is we sort of don't have that. We don't have people that really nurture their kids. We're more into disciplining. When I say discipline, it's usually whooping, with control things like, um, even if it's for good intentions, to stop people from using drugs and alcohol, to stop people from cursing, to speeding signs to tell you how fast you're going. There's a lot of control, and the control has led to us having a President Trump. And I think I was reading something that was saying I was wrong about Trump. Um, you could read all that information that you need to know also about Trump. And he's been in the media for quite a while, and a lot of the court cases that have been done, they're public records. Anybody can get access to it, and you can make your own decision from his bankruptcies to his dealings in the past with the Russians, with the Chinese, with their business practice overseas, um, even in their golf course that they have overseas, like Scotland, the problems that different people have in different places, um, and there's numerous uh, um, places that you can find information um, that will let you know that Trump for quite a while has been the type of person that has a job where he thinks that he has to hurt or harm people, you know. Um, and I see that a lot from the neighborhood thief. He can't, you know what I'm saying? If they do think of a way to make money without doing harm or damage to our environment and to our citizens and to somebody's reputation or causing undue harm or death, because I think that's what fracking is going to do. Like, even though I still smoke cigarettes, cigarettes. There are people that have thought of jobs like that don't harm people, like anything from a chef to people that build buildings, build boats, go fishing, farmers, uh, accountants. There's numerous jobs. And I'm not saying that. And I guess you're talking about becoming millionaires and billionaires. I would think that there are plenty of ways to do that too without causing harm and damage. I think that with the energy industry, yeah, we could cause a lot less harm and damage to our environment and to people's health if we went green, if we did solar panels, if we did wind or water, if we got away from nuclear plants. These nuclear plants over these fault lines where you can have earthquakes. It's insanity. Having these the frack out of the ground and have it shake and cause earthquakes and the toxins that you leave going through those pipelines, the leaks that could happen, the damage they could do to our environment and our water, our drinking water that we need to live off of. I think that that I'm not saying that we should maybe do our politics in such a way that we could figure out a way to make money without making war, without causing other people harm or damage. To have a health bill that doesn't uh, uh, um, uh, cause more harm and damage to the poor and disabled the disenfranchised. I think that our ancestors, even the Caucasian white Ku Klux Klan people, had wanted to have a better America than to retard our American growth. Um, Anyway, I'm just so disappointed in our government, especially the Republicans, that the thing that they are so greedy and so unthoughtful that they would be letting people lobby like the pharmaceutical and taking their money and knowing that they're doing harm with the opiums, and now we have a problem with the heroin. To allow um, these colleges to take advantage of the students and not to have our citizens back on the student loans, um, not to have our back on Russia coming in here and meddling with our election. That's the sad part for the Republicans not to even be able to do a decent job. That the rest of America could be proud of. Now we have it's a shame. It's a disgrace. The president that we have, and that the dealings that they have with Russia, and they can deny it, and they can say whatever they want to. They can talk out the side of their mouth with their forked tongue all day long. It don't make no difference when it comes to the reality. And somebody's gonna have to clean it up, and somebody's gonna have to fix it. You know what I'm saying? Because the Republicans, it's not that they can't, they won't. Obama was turning us back in the right direction, but you want to keep going in the wrong directions. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't care. A lot of these Republicans, you know, are old. You know, you got a few Paul Ryans that's in a good position, but he's too short. You know, I'm gonna say it this way: racism makes a motherfucker be a fool, an educated motherfucker fool. And I don't know what Trump is. You know, I think that we could all look at Trump and know people that we know that was men and women that were overly sexy, and as they get older, they don't have you know, they get a form of dementia from all their sexual uh, uh, adventures, and then you end up, you know, because you don't make no goddamn sense. It's either that or he has some form of Down syndrome, you know. But I think it's more of his sexual activities with prostitutes that, you know, he's gotten a sexually transmitted disease, and that his mind is just being eaten up by these sexually transmitted little parasites. Probably why he's up all night tweeting, because he probably hears it in his mind. Never mind.